Hello. Today we'll be looking at a very special bird, the Concorde, that we'll be taking from Montreal, Canada, all the way to Nice, France. Concorde is especially interesting because it was built in the 1960s, so it's somewhat complex, but also very manual. It was also manned by at least a crew of 3 people, at least at the very minimum. I'm not sure if there was a navigator or not as well, but there was captain, co-pilot, or a first officer, and an engineer also on board, whose job was to manage this board. So something that's, let's get started. One of the first things I did is generating a route. So this was not a route that was flown by Concorde, so I made one up in Simbrief. Simbrief does not support Concorde and supersonic flights in general, so I just chose a random aircraft here, so the Airbus A340. It doesn't really matter, that's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is the route here. So it looks pretty good. I edited a real world route to remove a lot of little sharp turns during cruise. Because those are just not practical when you're flying at Mach 2, and then it's making you take a little detour of like 40 miles. You're doing 20 miles a minute, so just doing a turn like this, you'll just overshoot the waypoint completely. So that's something I found in my first 2 flights. This is only my 3rd flight on the Concorde. So once you have a decent route, you can generate your flight. And then what we'll be looking for is the briefing preview here. And that will tell us for each of the each waypoint on the route, so KEBGO, RABIK, ANTOV, and so on, the coordinates that we'll have to plug into the navigation system. So, first, we'll go to aircraft, doors and ground. We'll connect the ground power. Next, flight preparation, load manager. So we want to make sure that we'll have enough fuel for our route. Our route is 3,300 miles. Right now, we have 3,560 miles of range, which is barely okay. So that should be good, so we'll apply. We'll still go to fuel manager and see if we can squeeze in a bit more. Or it's completely full. Yeah, it's already at 100%. Okay, so we can't put more fuel in, so we'll just leave it like that. And ground power connected, payload and passengers weight boarded. So we're done with that. Now we can go to checklists. Safety checklist, I just skip usually. There's not much super interesting in there. Preliminary cockpit, that one is pretty important. So ground power on. Main batteries, those are here on the lower right, so that's done. Equipment bay cooling panel, I believe that's right here. So we flip all of these switches on. Done. Oxygen panel is on the floor here, very hard to find. So we flip that on. Drain mast heaters, that's above here, so on. Then we'll start the navigation system. So first we'll put the 3 systems on standby. Then we'll go to our navigation panel. We'll just verify that it has our current position, which it should. That looks about right for Montreal, so that looks good. So we'll set them in align mode. 1, 2, 3. And what that does is now we have 3 white flashing lights. Those will keep flashing for about 10 minutes while the system is in alignment, and when it's done they'll turn green, at which point we'll be able to put the systems into nav mode. So for now we just wait. Air data computers on, those are here at the bottom, on. Emergency equipment check, no smoking sign, and seatbelts. Preliminary cockpit checklist complete. Next. So before engine start, so we'll want to turn on all of the master CDs, all of those switches here, and we see some warnings starting to go away, which is always a good sign. Cockpit preparation security, that's done. Oxygen, yeah, windows are closed. Flight control inverts on, alignment sys on, okay, anti-stall systems on. We can check that we're either in radio navigation mode or INS navigation mode. In our case, we won't need to do any radio navigation on departure, so we'll just set them to INS from the start. Instrument transfer, they're currently all set on the captain side, so that looks good. Nav radios. Oh, sorry, I skipped a few. Okay, altimeters. So for the current altimeter, we'll go back to Simbrief and look at the departure report, where it's 299er7, setting on the captain side and first officer side. Set. Audio panel com 1 on. Nav radios, we won't be using ATC for this flight, but it's on 122.8, which is Unicom. So that looks okay. We'll set our squawk code for 2000 already, so that will be done for later. Brakes, parking, brake set. Nav lights on. They're here at the top. Throttle masters, those are at main by default. That's okay. Ground hydraulics, we want yellow, yellow, that's set, and then off and off. Looks good. Fuel heaters, those are the big rockets. We'll put those on auto. Engine recirculation valves, shut, that's fine. Secondary air doors, if we're planning to take off with reheat, fuel reheaters, so the big rockets, we need to set those on auto, and we're definitely doing that. Set. And the batteries, we turn them on at the start of everything, so they're already on. Now, INS 123, we need to wait until those little lights turn green, but what we can do in the meantime is program our route in the system here. So we'll go to waypoint. The Concorde supports 9 waypoints at a time, so mid-flight we'll have to encode more waypoints. And it's on this analog dial that goes from 1 to 9. So what we'll do now is, going back to our Simbrief route, where we had our flight briefing, we'll go through each waypoint and plug in the 9 first coordinates northwest for each. So starting with 1, which is KEBGO, and I've noted them down on a sheet of paper. So for north, we press 2 to activate north, so that's done. And then it's 4, 5, 1, 6, 5, and then west. So I press 4 to activate west. We go 0, 7, 3, 1, 2, 0, insert. So that's our 1. And we keep going like this for the first 9. And what you'll notice is that the Concorde has no map, no visual, not a lot of visual reference that we're used to with electronic navigation systems today. So you have to be, it makes you a much better navigator as well at the same time, following what you're doing on charts. And the last one for this first batch. So we have 4900, and then west 00800, and insert. So we can scroll through them now, and they're all coded. That's good. I believe, but I'm not sure about this, I'm still new with the aircraft, but if right now it's set to navigate from point 1 to point 2, but point 1 is our first point on our route, so that's not what we want. We want initially to navigate from point 0, which I believe is our current position at whichever point we activate the autopilot, to waypoint 1. So we'll insert that and waypoint change, and that's locked in. So navigation done. We're still waiting for those lights to turn green, so we'll give them some time. We'll keep going on the checklist. So fuel flow bugs, that's good. Throttle level, that's good. Briefing, okay. Load sheet check, that's fine. We did all of this. Load limits set, checked, okay. Takeoff data, checked. Start clearance, there's no ATC, we don't need to do that. Door lights, it's fine. Anti-collision lights, that's up top. Throttles idle, that looks good to me. Engine feed pumps, on. Lots of fuel tanks, lots of pumps. So that's on, and we just need our clearance to start, which we'll skip because no ATC. Okay, so we're ready to start our engines, fire up the engines. So bleed air source available. That's fine, so we'll start flipping some of those switches on, and cross bleed open. Our bleed air source is actually the ground power, so we need to start the engines at the gate of this aircraft. So that's complete. Okay, so we can get the engine started. So we'll start with engine 3. So we flip the start switch on. Should see some numbers rising, and we don't. Did I forget something? I forgot something. Okay. What did I forget? Bleed is on. Cross bleed open. Start valve open. No. That's good. The feed pumps are on. Yep. Okay, let's try this again. So what did we forget here? I think this all looks good. Do we have our ground power? Is it connected? Pretty sure it is. Where's our ground power? Did it disappear? Ah, okay. For some reason the ground power was gone, which is not a good thing. Okay, let's try this again now. Okay, so we started the engine 3, now we see the numbers rising. If we look up, we'll have the number 3 fire thing lighting up, so we can give it fuel. Now the numbers will rise a bit better. Oh, and our nav lights are now ready, so nav, and nav. All good. So once the engine is ready, the little switch will flip back to its original position, so we'll just give it a few more moments. And done. So engine 3 is online, so we'll start the hydraulic switches and the generator 3 for electrical power. So that's good. Now we repeat this for engine 2. You can also start the, open the, I think it's the condition valve. So engine 2, give it fuel. Numbers are rising nicely. And we should see the flick. Okay, so engine 2. Hydraulics, power, condition valve. So that's looking good. Now engine 4, same thing. Once we get the flashing light, fuel. And if we go to the external view now, the aircraft is extremely loud, so be warned, I'm going to switch the camera now. I guess it's not so bad. Okay, so engine 4 started, so hydraulic pumps, generator on, and the valve. Looking good, and finally, engine 1. We get our flashing light, give it fuel, numbers look good. A few more seconds. And good. So, hydraulic pump, generator, condition valve. This looks great, and now we have on our on the overhead panel we have no more warning lights open, which is always a very good sign. Okay, so before engine start, checklist complete. Engine start, that's the one we were just doing. Con valve open, hydraulic pump, electric generator. Cross bleed shut now that the engines are on. Cross bleed shut. And repeat for each engine. All good. Okay, so before pushback. The generators for the coffee machine in the back and some electrical power for coffee and stuff. We'll flip that on. Taxi lights, okay, we'll wait for the pushback. We can lower the visor now. Give us a bit more visibility. Parking brake, okay, so now we'll call for a pushback.
Run to cockpit, please show me where you want to go.
We'll go right about here.
Run to cockpit, tow is driving up.
Okay. So before pushback checklist, I believe was good. I think that's good. So we'll go to our before taxi. So engines are all running. Elsewhere steering checked. Flight controls checked. Master warning panel, that's fine. Anti-ice is off, already checked. Brake fans on. Engine idle switch low. Set. Stall warnings, okay. Engine feed pumps, they're all on. We did that already. Hydraulics checked.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Electrics is fine. Inform ground, okay. Nose 5 degrees, we'll do that after pushback. Fire instruments, that's good. Trims, blah blah blah. Okay. We'll ask the flight engineer to trim the aircraft for ground. That's done. Okay. For taxi, we've set the fuel transfer. Engine rating mode takeoff. We'll just verify that that's what it is set at. Yeah, set to takeoff. Yep, it is. Okay. Auto ignition on. Auto throttle on.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
And for pushback, wants us to kill the brake, so we'll just do that.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Alright. Drain mast heaters, those are on. Engine flight rating climb set. Press static heater on. Engine 4 N1 takeoff limiter 88%. This is set 88% checked. Air conditioning panel I think is okay because I don't even know where to look. So we'll just assume that it's okay. Fuel panel set checked, okay. Anti-skid system no lights. Reverser shut off checked. It's probably okay. That's fine. Seats and harness okay. De-air for some fuel tanks here, so just put some tanks on auto in case our engineer is not really doing his job. There's another de-air here. Pumps on auto, that's fine. This is just an override. I don't think we need that. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. Center of gravity gauges. That's this. Okay. We'll put it for takeoff once we reach takeoff. So taxi checklist complete. And we're now getting pushed back nicely. Something to note about the Concorde is that the nose steering wheel is about 40 feet behind the pilot. So when you're turning on taxi and everything, you always have to account for it that you have to overshoot by about 40 feet before you make your turn. It's a very strange aircraft to maneuver on the ground. It's very clumsy also. But it's very... And that's in part because it's so heavy before you take off. Like we have 94,000 kilograms of fuel right now. Almost 100 ton of fuel. Which is insane. So we should be just about done with pushback.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
So set our parking brake. He's going to
disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Good. Just cross-checking that this all looks good. Didn't forget anything. No red lights. No warnings. Brake fans on. That's good. Everything looks good. Okay. We'll set our transponder on. Done. Just doing some items here. Transponder is on. Landing lights we don't really need. There's enough lights. Take off clear. Okay, so all we want are the taxi lights. Just wait for this guy to...
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time on Haverside flight.
Okay. So taxi lights are coming on. And we'll lower the nose to 5 degrees for better visibility. And we'll remove our parking brake. Alright, so we can start making our way to runway 24 left. Giving it some power. We'll set the altimeter to 250. Sorry, not the altimeter, the speed indicator, or the auto throttle speed selector to 250 knots ahead of time. After takeoff, flying the Montreal to departure, we also want to fly a heading of 245, so we'll already plug that into the heading bug. Something else that's useful to do is to adjust the vertical speed selector for when we engage the autopilot. Initially, we'll want to be climbing at least about 2,000 feet per minute, and then we can always increase it later. So all of those controls are now set. Looking good. We'll set our altitude to 28,000 for the initial subsonic flight, after which we'll boom to Mach 2 and climb to 60,000 feet. Normally on the Montreal to departure, the initial altitude is 5,000, the initial clearance, and then air traffic control clears you to your cruise altitude. But since we're not doing air traffic control right now, we'll just climb right away. So we'll try to pick up some speed now that we just have to go in a straight line. .23 knots. While taxiing, the speed limit is usually 30 knots, so we'll reduce power a little bit. Okay, so some things we'll want to do for takeoff. Want to activate all of the fuel reheaters. Those are the rockets in the back, so now they're activated. We want to activate the takeoff monitors, so that is set. And with that, we're good. A ritual when taking off, well, it's not really a ritual, there were practical reasons for it, but when taking off with Concorde is to say, actually, does it? Did I lose my nose steering? No. Okay. On takeoff, usually you say, well, they would always say 3, 2, 1 now, and that would mean that they were putting full power and taking off. And there were so many things, as you can see, there are so many dials and different things to monitor on takeoff that it was just a signal for the entire flight crew to have their eyes in the instruments and make sure that the takeoff was going as it should. Okay, so we're approaching the runway entrance here. Oops, that's a lot of brakes, but okay. Alright. So now we'll ask the engineer to trim the aircraft for takeoff, placing the fuel in the right position for the aircraft to take off as smoothly as possible. We have our takeoff monitors on. No need for takeoff lights. The trim is probably okay, or we'll readjust it after takeoff. Normally here we'd get clearance for takeoff, speed bird Concorde 1, curve takeoff runway 24 left. Whoa, we're going too fast here. Okay. That's the problem with external views. And We are pretty much aligned. What does it look like externally? It looks good. Okay. 3, 2, 1, now. Okay. 80 knots. 100 knots. V1. And rotate. You have to rotate violently on this aircraft. And positive climb, you're up. Okay, here we have to watch our speeds. Now we are going to shut down the afterburners. Don't need those anymore. We're now passing 1,000 feet. We'll turn on the auto throttle and also turn on the autopilot and start our climb. We want to fly a heading of 245. So we'll instruct it to do that. We're descending a little bit right now, but I think we should pick up some speed pretty soon. We also want to ask the engineer to trim for flight. They will help us climb. And we're climbing again. Okay. It's so clumsy at low speeds like this. It flies like a big pig with small wings. Okay, so normally when passing 3,000 feet is when ATC would clear you to go to your first waypoint. So we're just about to reach that point now. And we'll go INS mode, which will take us to our first waypoint on our route, I hope. Still climbing, still looking good. Can probably make it climb a little bit faster. It wants to climb faster. We weren't at full power, so that's good. Can remove or close the taxi lights now. So we've got auto throttle set, speed 250, good. INS navigation mode and vertical speed set on the autopilot. We're 30 miles from our first waypoint. That seems about right. So if we go here, yep, we're 30 miles and we'll reach it in 6 minutes. That looks good. Once we reach 10,000 feet, we'll want to start accelerating. 10,000 feet. Okay, nose up. Speed. Increase our speed to 300 knots to start. And the visor can come up as well. As we make our way to 28,000 feet, flight level 280. So that's good. Okay. Everything still looks good. So we have a chrono for the time that we use the afterburners fuel heaters. So we used 1 minute 11 seconds, which isn't so bad. We'll use about 8 minutes probably once we do our supersonic transition. We can use about, I think maximum is around 12 minutes over the entire duration of the flight because it burns so much gas that you just won't make it to your destination if you use more than 10 minutes. So we have to keep an eye on that, and if we're not able to get to our cruising altitude within the restriction, it means we have to go back to our, well, we need to divert to a closer airport. We just won't make it to our destination. So we're about to reach our waypoint number 1 in 6.2 miles, then we should see this switch to waypoint 1 to waypoint 2 automatically and start adjusting to that new waypoint. Also climbing nicely now, and we've reached 300 knots. Increase it now to 320 knots. We're still not supersonic. Our current speed is 0.65 Mach, so about 66% of the speed of sound. So we want to accelerate to about 384 knots by the time we reach flight level 280. So I'm slowly increasing the speed, all while checking that our vertical speed is still acceptable. We're now at 22,000 feet. Oh, and we see that the waypoints change. Now we're going from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2. So if we go back to our flight plan, we're going between KEBGO and RABIK right now. And then in 12 miles, we'll be going from RABIK to ANTOV. And if we go on the map, it means that we're about here, so a little bit south of Montreal right now. $24,000 feet, increased to 350 knots. Now going at Mach 0.85. 2 miles from our next waypoint, so we should see the switch happen in a few seconds here. And 2 to 3. All is well. Okay, so now we'll increase speed to 384 knots. It should level up at 28,000, hopefully. Oh yeah, altitude to hold. Okay. So now for the fun part, we're going to plan our supersonic climb. So at 384 knots, 28,000 feet, this takes us to a very nice 0.95, 96, 97 Mach, so just before becoming supersonic, which is where we want to stabilize. In real life, you would have to wait to be over a big body of water, like an ocean or something like that, before going supersonic, because it creates a big sonic boom, and it can break windows on the ground. Here, we don't care, we're just going to cheat and do it here. So for this, we'll want to disengage the auto throttle, give it max power in. We'll want to climb to 60,000 feet. We'll set that right now. Acquire and not max hold, max climb. Okay. We set it to max climb, and we reopen the rockets. Now we should start accelerating pretty quickly and climbing pretty quickly. If we go outside, we'll see that the rockets are burning. Max climb is pretty neat because it's going to climb all while maximizing our speed. So it should be smart enough to make sure that we keep accelerating. Is it gonna do it? Oh, and we can set, forgot to set the altimeter back to standard on both sides. Watching our speed now, and we're not accelerating all that much, but Okay, it's accelerating now. I think I messed up something in the order in which I clicked the buttons. It's even descending to accelerate. So it's correcting its mistake. Alright. Or my mistake. So once the white needle reaches close to the yellow needle, which is our overspeed limit, we should start climbing again, hopefully. We're now at 4 minutes of afterburners. We have to keep an eye on that as well, and my mistake is probably not helping. If we do a flyby view, we'd probably hear the sonic boom now. It's 6 minutes. We're finally closer to a point now where the white needle is very close to the yellow needle, so when that happens, it starts climbing a bit faster. And as we climb, our maximum speed can continue to go higher and higher, because the air outside becomes thinner and thinner, so we can go faster. Now it's 7 minutes of afterburners. Brake fans can come off. The ground idle limiter can come off as well. And this I don't think we have to touch. I think everything else is okay. No warnings, no nothing. Okay. 8 minutes. 9 minutes, so this is starting to be a little bit worrisome. We need to turn off the fuel heaters at Mach 1.7. So we're getting close, but not quite there yet. 40,000 feet. .62. We're approaching 10 minutes. Six, 8. 6970. Readers are coming off. And we shouldn't have to use them again for the entire duration of the flight. We had to use 10 minutes 21 seconds, which is on the higher side. Again, it's only my third flight with Concorde, but I've had flights where it only took 9 minutes or so. So hopefully we won't run out of fuel. So far in the flight, we've already burned 21 tons of fuel. Metric tons. So even though the fuel reheaters are off now, we're still continuing to climb and accelerate. So the air is so much thinner now that it just kind of works. Once we reach 50,000 feet, or flight level 500, the max cruise mode should engage. And once we reach Mach 2.02, we'll want to reactivate the auto throttle and put it on Mach hold. For now, we're just at 100% power. Something that was fun about the cabin in the Concorde is that the passengers could see. So this is a plane from the 1960s, so there were no entertainment systems with screens or anything, but there were these speed and altitude indicator for everybody on board. So we see that we're cruising at, well, climbing still at Mach 1.94. Which is 1,320 miles per hour on the ground. So everything still looks good. No warnings, no nothing. Perfect. And 50,000 feet approaching, so we have our max cruise mode that just engaged. We put the auto throttle on Mach hold. And we can flip the engine rating mode from takeoff to flight, and even flight rating from climb to cruise. And we'll gently continue to climb all the way to 60,000 feet. On our waypoints, we're between waypoint 3 and 4, so between Anton and MIILS on our route. So ANTOV and MIILS. So we're somewhere in between these 2 points here on the chart. So about to cross into Maine/New Brunswick and out of Quebec. And as we hit 55,000 feet, this is then the cruise band. So usually Concordes were given a range of altitude to fly to their destination, which was the band at 55,000 feet all the way to 60,000. So we're just about to reach that level now. And this is because as we continue to climb, it will become more and more difficult to reach 60,000 feet, or flight level 600. Until we burn some more fuel, but it's also dependent on the temperature outside, the winds, like all sorts of conditions. But as long as we can make it to 55,000, then I'm happy. And Mach 2.02 is exactly where we want to be. So we'll just continue our cruise here, and when we approach our point of descent, we'll start the second part, part 2 of this series of 2 videos. So see you on the other side.